If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. If you're familiar with this channel, I've talked about the McMartin case many, many times. It is the thing that really woke me up. And for whatever reason, which we probably clearly know is because they're afraid and they hear a lot of people talking about it, they're bringing it up again in this newly released hoax-documentary on the Oxygen Network, which of course is owned by NBC Universal and obviously is completely controlled, where they're deflecting about McMartin and they're making the people who ran the preschool into the victims. You can see the Wall Street Journal even doing an article on it this week. The McMartin Family Trials Review prosecution as ludicrous charade. This haunting documentary revisits the case in the 1980s. Involving the false charges against the owners and employees of a preschool in California. This case was the case, and I'm going to show you some clips to show you what a charade this documentary is and what a charade the mainstream media is, but this was the case that could have blew it all open. This was the case where people would have found out and realized who's really in control of this world, what's really going on behind the closed doors, behind the veil, right? Like the Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain. And people would realize that Satanism and the occult is real. Now, in the documentary, or whatever you want to call it, in this episode of the show on Oxygen, they, of course, barely get into anything involving satanic ritual abuse and just kind of dismiss it and jump in and go, can you believe that people actually believe that they were telling kids to do this type of stuff to animals? And that's how they always operate, right? They always use deflection. I'll show you the trailer and then some clips from it, where you can actually hear some of the victims. One of the victims comes forward and talks about it. Take a listen for yourself.
I was 2 going on 3 when I started going to McMartin.
The preschool was a trusted neighborhood business. I couldn't imagine what was going on over there.
The child said that Raymond Bucky had molested him.
They take your most prized possession and try to dement it.
I was this 3-year-old little girl being made to stand in front of people and have pictures taken of her when she was naked.
We are alleging that approximately 100 children were sexually molested at the school.
Several defendants are accused of molesting children, including 76-year-old Virginia McMartin, her daughter, and 2 grandchildren.
Searches were made in every location.
They found nothing.
I'm Pac-Man. My job is to get to hear your key secrets.
Confronting these children with sexually explicit dolls.
The interviewers clearly had an agenda.
These children were not telling the same story during each interview.
The kids are taking pieces of stories and stringing them together.
It really wasn't a search for truth.
Children were taken off campus at times to be sexually assaulted.
It was blasted daily. The case took on a life of its own.
We thought there's no end in sight.
Raymond Bucky, how do you plead?
I'm not guilty, Your Honor.
The community presumed guilt.
All of them lost everything they had.
Those children stood there and pointed and said, he's the guy that did this to me. Things happened there that were so terrible it kept my daughter awake at night.
I can't believe this was made up. They didn't do anything wrong with those children.
I know I was molested at McMartin Preschool.
Manhattan Beach Police Department.
My name is Judy Johnson, and I want to report a crime.
Judy Johnson was the first person who had reported any kind of problem at the McMartin preschool. Judy Johnson was suspected of being an alcoholic.
I had my investigator spend time with her, and he came back and told me what she talks about from moment to moment makes no sense.
She never became a real part of my defense because I didn't know she had perhaps schizophrenia and drinking problem, because they hid it. So the idea came about, and I generated as much as I can. I think we need to see this witness.
She called me the day before she was to testify, saying she did not want to come into court. I had tried to assure her we would protect her, we'd make sure she was comfortable. I tried to do everything I could because we needed to have her come in. And that night, she drank herself to death.
I never understood why Manhattan Beach Police Department didn't deeply investigate her. Okay, it was not done. And had it been done then, I wouldn't be talking about the case. It would never have been filed.
T. McFarlane, the supposed expert in child abuse matters, thought her technique should be videotaped. And what we discovered, these children were not telling the same story during each interview.
When the child said no, referring to Ray, he wasn't even there when I went there. They'd say, well, how about your sister or your brother? And they'd have their names, and they'd work on maybe it happened to your brother and your sister. Maybe you don't know. Confronting these children with sexually explicit dolls.
Well, they were 3 and 4 when they were in preschool. Their memories weren't accurate. If you watch the videos, you see they didn't know who their fellow classmates were. But then when they were asked about supposed games played at the school, well, they remembered Goose Goose, Ducky Duck. But that's not what Key wanted to hear about. She wanted to hear about yucky games. Games where the kids were supposedly nude. No, we didn't play any yucky games. The interviewer, typically Key, would say, well, you remember Susie and Jimmy, your friends? They told us you all played these naked games. Aren't you as smart as they are? What do you expect a child to say? No, I'm dumber than them?
Judy Johnson, people don't know a lot about her because she died shortly before the trial. She was suspected of being an alcoholic. She was divorced. She dropped her kid off. I mean, her child first went to the preschool because she just dropped him there without enrolling him. Just left him at this preschool and drove home. And Virginia McMartin, being kind of a sweet old grandmotherly lady, took the kid in and allowed the kid to continue coming to school. And my recollection is that there was a doctor who examined the child, and based on that examination, at least partly based on it, Raymond Bucky was arrested.
When it comes to the original mother, Judy Johnson, I didn't find out. You may presume that I knew a lot about that. I knew not even what's out there in the media, and even less because the district attorney concealed all about Judy Johnson from us. We finally located her hidden, as it were, in a motel where we wouldn't have known where she was. So the truth is, they hid it. They concealed it in what is old-fashioned violation of law. Exculpatory evidence that the mother, who was the face on a mistaken account of molestation, was mentally disabled, emotionally disabled.
I don't think the doctor found medical evidence of molestation. I think she just found something consistent with molestation. In any case, the child was examined by a doctor at UCLA, and an arrest of Bucky followed.
This one evening, I took Elizabeth, and the two of us went in, and she walked right into a bathroom, kind of just a little bathroom where there's just a little sink and a little toilet. And she said, "This is where the tunnel was." There was no tunnel there. I didn't see any tunnel. I didn't see a break in the wall. I didn't see anything, but she said, "This is where we went through the tunnel."
I remember being in what felt like a tunnel, and having pictures of what to me I thought was the devil on the wall. I don't know if it was a bull's head or the devil, but to me as a kid it was the devil. And there being like candles off the side, like a light, you know, off the wall, and it was dark. And I remember going downstairs to get into it.
So I went a couple of nights later. I was with my friend, a good friend, and her daughter to go over and pound. And the daughter said, "Oh, I want to show you. This is where we went into the tunnel." Oh, I still get goosebumps, because how could two different kids who didn't know each other, well, they sure didn't know each other, they knew each other now, but they didn't know each other at preschool, and they'd never talked about preschool.
A group of parents hired a tunnel expert. And the tunnel expert goes because the kids had talked about there being tunnels under the vacant lot that was next to the preschool. So a tunnel expert digs up the tunnels. Digs up the lot. Digs tunnels into the lot. And then there's press out there, and he's talking as if these tunnels were there.
I never doubted anything either of my children said about what happened to them at the preschool. Especially, in all honesty, I might not have believed it if they told me and I didn't have any other frame of reference. But once I had a frame of reference, and I know these kids weren't talking to each other, deciding how to make this all happen, I never doubted anything. I don't know how it happened. I don't have the imagination to figure it out, but I do not at all discount anything that they said.
Oh, of course, the one guy stumbling over his words about the tunnels, they dug to look for the tunnels and they found the tunnel. I mean, the tunnels, there were no tunnels, right? And obviously, if you're familiar with this case, Ted Gunderson actually was able, after the case was dismissed, to access this land before they demolished. Well, they demolished, and then they were going to build a building over it, of course, to cover the evidence, as they always do. But they actually filled in the tunnels with a different type of soil. And they had archaeologists and all types of people there who dug into it and found these tunnels that were leading to airports and all these different locations where they were trafficking children out. Absolutely frightening stuff. But this is the truth of the world we live in. And people think that hundreds of kids come forward and they just suddenly are making up stories back in the 80s, like they could even communicate or fathom. Like they couldn't even fathom this type of stuff. Their imagination wouldn't even be able to make these types of stories up because they don't even know what this stuff is, in regards to the sexual acts done on them, these satanic rituals done. But they're able to come out to the media and just make it, the mother was an alcoholic, the first woman who called in. And then she just happens to just die the day before the trial starts. Oh, that's not a coincidence at all, right? She's an alcoholic, and it just works out the day before the trial, she just drinks herself to death. How convenient. And then, of course, they go after everybody's character, right? Because they just attack somebody's character. It has nothing to do with the children. They just completely deflect off the children. Then they say these adults manipulated the kids to make up these stories. Like there was some grand scheme here. Like they were going to make trillions of dollars off of this dumb preschool center. You can even see them laughing, during this documentary. If you want to watch it, it's on Oxygen. If you have cable, you might be able to find it on YouTube. I found a few clips that I obviously just showed you. But they're laughing during the trial when they're talking about this stuff. You could see no remorse. And just like West Memphis 3, just like any of these cases that come out, it's never about the children as the victims. It's always that these people are the victims because these crazy Christians, these crazy people who want money, attack these poor innocents and say that they're doing these types of rituals and how dare they do that. And they're so, these people are, they have mental problems, right? We have mental problems because we know this stuff's going on. Nobody in the, I wouldn't even say it. I mean, some of the people that we see in this world, men pretending to be women, they don't have anything wrong with them. We have the mental problem, right? Because we're just pointing out the obvious because kids are coming forward and they're telling us that they're scheming together. It's a complete and utter joke. This is nothing more than propaganda. Now, as far as the tunnels go, I'm going to play the clip from Ted Gunderson, and you could hear what he found for yourself if you're new to this. If you haven't heard in a while, it's worth listening to again, because this is nothing but a charade. This is the biggest cover-up, I believe, in American history. They go, oh, it's the most expensive trial. It's the only reason it was the most expensive trial is because they paid so much of the taxpayers' money so that they can use that as an excuse to end the case, and so that they can cover it up every which way they could. They were paying people to fill the tunnels. I mean, it's so obvious what happened here and how it's amazing that they have to bring this back up and deflect again, because they do, because people like me are talking about it, and we're not going to stop talking about it. So here's Ted Gunderson talking about the tunnels.
Let's talk about the McMartin case. In April 1985, authorities went to the McMartin case and looked for tunnels under the school. The children had said that they were taken into tunnels under the school. There was a chamber down there. They were sexually molested. That involved ceremonies, adults with robes, candles, chanting. Adults had no clothes on under their robes. And they were taken up into a tunnel and a triplex, a bathroom trap door of the triplex next door. They were taken out in automobiles. We're talking about 2, 3, 4-year-old children, folks, and prostituted in the community. The authorities received this complaint in 1983. They began their investigation. The authorities finally in 1985, went out and decided to look for the tunnels because they said the children were hallucinating. The children also said that they were taken by air up into a mountainous area where they were exposed to satanic ceremonies based on what they described, and brought back in time for the parents to pick up the kids. So the authorities didn't find anything. We're getting off. Pull those next slides. Well, I'll tell you what. In the spring of 1993, I heard that the property of the McMartin School had been sold from the McMartin family to the defense attorney, actually given to him. He didn't make enough off the county. His bill was only $3 million. And from there, he said he was broke and he sold it to a contractor. The contractor was going to build an office building on the space. And I heard that the contractor had this property. And so I went out and contacted him. And I said, dear sir, I would like to have access to that property. He said, I'll give you 2 weeks. I signed a contract, assumed liability, and along with some of the parents, we hired an archaeologist from UCLA, Dr. Gary Stickle, knowing full well that I'm not qualified to say there's tunnels under there, even if I found them. And we began our dig. At the end of 2 weeks, I had to stall, because Dr. Stickle was not quite ready to admit there were tunnels. It took us 34 days. At noon, the 34th day, with the bulldozers, with their motors running, ready to knock the building down, he was going to knock the building down and then build this office building. Dr. Stickle said, you know, I can say without any question right now, there have been tunnels under the school. They were filled in. Now, I'm going to show you the documentation on the tunnels. This is it. No, keep it there. Keep that there. This is what we found. This is a preliminary report. I have a 186-page scientific report available to you out here if you're interested, by the way. We found a 9-foot wide subterranean entrance under the west wall of dog room. There were 4 classrooms. That was Ray Bucky's room. By the way, Virginia McMartin and Ray Bucky were tried. Virginia, the grandmother, was acquitted. Ray had a hung jury. And we found these tunnels in the middle of the second trial of Ray Bucky. They could have been used to convict him. We called the prosecutor. He sent his investigator out, Mr. Perez. Mr. Perez told me, I don't want you entering in my conversation with the archaeologist. I said, why? He says, you're too argumentative. And I said, well, okay, you go in and talk. I'll just keep my mouth shut. We went in, he talked, and he argued with the archaeologist. Here's an investigator not qualified to talk about tunnels. He said there aren't any tunnels there, and the archaeologists, of course, argued about it. Anyway, they didn't use that evidence, strong evidence, in the second trial. They ignored it right in the middle of the second trial. I might mention this. The children identified professional football players, professional baseball players, household name actors, actresses, and the son of the leading politician, not a leading politician, the leading politician in Los Angeles as being perpetrators. Okay, we found an avocado tree root cut on both sides of the entrance, and I'll show you this in just a few minutes. The entrance to the tunnel, as I said, it was 9 feet across the top, and on one side was a live avocado root, on the other side was a dead avocado root. They had to cut that out. We have this, by the way. We found a plastic Disney bag, copyright 1982, about 4.5 feet below the classroom floor, and 3 to 6 inches in from the entrance and under the foundation. Now, the reason that plastic Disney bag is so important is because we think that they filled the tunnel in 1982 when the complaint was initially brought to the attention of the authorities. I said 83 earlier, it's 82 when the complaint was made. And when they filled it in, the plastic Disney bag somehow or other flew in there as they were filling it in and nobody noticed it. Now, who says there is no God, right? What documentation, fantastic documentation, that tunnel, the entrance to that tunnel, this is right at the entrance, was filled in 1982 or sometime subsequent to 1982. Mr. Ken Lanning, the outstanding know-it-all FBI expert, behavioral science, says that I took that garbage bag in 1993 out of a trash can and placed it there, that I planted evidence. Of course, Mr. Lanning says there's no organized satanic movement in this country today. There's only a few dabblers here and there. Thank you, sir. We have another 3 hours to go, okay? Can you hang in there? Okay, the tunnel proceeded south, then 45 feet through classroom 4 and 3 and north, then 10 feet within the classroom 4. The tunnels were 30 inches wide, 44 to 46 inches deep, with the top of the tunnel 30 inches under the classroom floor. The children were able to walk through it. We're talking about young kids now, right? The adults had to stoop down and walk through, but they could do it. The tunnels were built in kind of a triangular, or I should say a semicircle type, so that they had natural support, I guess. These people know everything. They're brilliant. The footing between classroom 3 and 4 was arched, where the tunnel passed underneath it, and 12 inches shorter in depth at this location than the same footing 12 feet to the north. I'll show you that in just a minute. That's significant, because the arch was where the tunnel went, and it was arched in that particular location, whereas 12 feet away, it was 12 inches longer or thicker. Footing between, let's see, there were 4 large upright containers were found in the tunnel under the arch, obviously hand-placed. A 9-foot wide chamber was found along the tunnel across classroom 4. The top of the chamber and the top of sections of the tunnel had layers of plywood covered with tar paper, which had apparently been supported by cinder blocks and 2x2 and 2x4 wooden posts found underneath. Tunnel features made it evident that the tunnels had been hand-dug. The 7-foot tunnel extended into the triplex next door. Tunnel extended from the bathrooms off the office and classroom 1 to the front yard of the triplex next door. Front yard concealed from the street by a 3-car garage. Children described the entrance and exiting tunnels in the triplex yard exactly where the tunnels and exit were found. A 39 by 41 inch area under a hole cut in this neighbor's bathroom floor had been excavated and subsequently tilled. Now, that was where the kids told us ahead of time that they were taking it up in a trapdoor in this bathroom. And there was a crawl space in the house about like this, and we got one of our skinny archaeologists to go in there, take pictures. The bathtub protruded underneath the floor of the bathroom. There was a bathroom in the back of the same building in another apartment. It did not protrude there. This was the space we're talking about, 39 by 41 inches. Just enough room for a kid to come up and be taken out. Other significant facts: small white plastic plate with 3 pentagrams Hand drawn on the top of the light green paint was found by the archaeologists. Pentagrams were hand drawn by an adult and not part of the manufacturer's design. Many other artifacts were found whose analysis will be released upon completion of the test. The analysis has been released. That's the scientific report I told you about. No doorknobs were on classroom 3, only a dead bolt lock. Each classroom had an on and off switch which was labeled fire alarm. The system did not connect to the fire station but was used as an alert within the school if somebody came around. More than 2,000 artifacts were found under the school floor, including over 100 animal bones. Due to the constraints and time constraints and so forth, we had to discontinue the process on noon the 34th day. By the way, this cost us, a lot of people donated their time. It still cost us money. It cost us between $55,000 and $60,000. I personally put in $17,000, which I ended up, in many instances, paying over a long-term period payment plan. This is a floor plan of the whole lot. There is, right there, the building itself. This is the entrance, the concrete slab, a vacant lot there. This is a yard. And here's the avocado tree we're talking about. And here's the entrance right there. Now here is the tunnel. It came in here, extended here, and here's the chamber across here. We think, but didn't have time to explore this. The tunnel went up here. Now we definitely were able to come up with it here, right here, and it came into the bathroom over here. Okay. There's the entrance. It's 9 feet across here. I'll show you a diagram in a few minutes. There's the avocado tree. Those roots are live. Over here, we had a dead avocado root. Okay, next. There's a plate that was found in the play yard, buried about 6 inches under the sand, with the pentagram on it. That's right. And here's a diagram of the tunnel. This is the entrance of the tunnel. Now that's the floor, the footing for the classroom 4. Here's the plastic Disney bag, was located right there, partially under the footing and partially out. And this AF means artificial fill. And this was the shape of the entrance. Okay. Here's your diagram. These are your drawings. Artificial fill. Here's the avocado root there. Here's the dead root over there. Distance 120 or 21 inches below and 14 inches below the footing. There's the avocado root there, live avocado root. And these are all diagrams by the archaeologists. Good documentation. There are the roots themselves. That shows you the size, 2 centimeters. Next. There's the plastic Disney bag. Turn it over. There's the plastic Disney bag. Disney, classroom 82, 83. Sandwich bag. It was a sandwich bag. This shows the arch of the tunnel. Now, the school was built in 1966, which means the foundation was laid then. And here's your arch. And this is from classroom 4 here into classroom 3 over here. And it was 12 inches higher over to the left. Go ahead. There's yours truly looking up. This was in classroom 4, as I recall. And this is where the tunnel extended, right along here. Now, the reason the tunnel's been filled in, you have to understand that. And the reason the archaeologists could say that they were filled in is because the texture of the dirt that had been filled in was different than the natural texture. Okay. Just turn it off for a minute. In addition to the tunnels, I developed information that an abandoned Satanic site was in Crestline, California. Crestline, California is in the mountains. The kids said, remember a few minutes ago, they were flown by jet, or flown, they didn't say jet, into the mountains. There's an airport 10 minutes from the McMartin preschool. It's Hawthorne Airport. There's a landing strip and Crestline. I heard about this abandoned satanic site, and I went up to the site, took pictures. And this is what by the way, before I go on with this, I called the prosecutor in the McMartin case. And I told her, hey, I think I know where the children were taken. If they weren't, it's certainly worth looking at. And I will be glad to make this information available to you. And if you want to have the children go up and look at this abandoned satanic site, we can. She said, we're not interested. They weren't interested in hardcore evidence, the tunnel. They weren't interested in this abandoned satanic site. Go ahead. This is what we found. 666, one of the satanic signs. That's a stone on the site. The house had been up here. The day after the McMartin case broke in the news, the house burned to the ground. And it was here. The street's on the other side of the hill. You cannot see the site, this area down in here, from the street. You have to go in, had to go in through the house and come down. And this, you can see it's quite elaborate. There's my associate, Judy Johnson, who works with me in LA. And next. This is looking at the opposite direction of the picture we just took. And you can see there's San Bernardino down in there. And you can see that on the side of a mountain like that, nobody's going to find it unless you fly over with a helicopter. That's probably an altar, flattened stone. Also an altar, another altar that had been broken. This is, of course, you recognize the star. Now, this is a satanic symbol. Put the next one up. Hold the first one. There it is right there. Put the first one back on. Now overlay them. Turn it around that way. Okay, any question about that, folks? No. Now let's read what that says. Asmodee, a strong and powerful king, appears with 3 heads, the first like a bull, the second like a man, the third like a ram. He has a serpent's tail, the webbed feet of a goose, and he vomits fire. He rides the infernal dragon, carries lance and pennon, and is the chief of the power of Amaman. He must be invoked, be bareheaded, or otherwise he will deceive. He gives the ring of virtues, teaches arithmetic, geometry, and other handicrafts, answers all questions, makes men invisible, indicates the place of concealed treasures, and guards them if within the domain of the Amaman. Oh, what do we got here? Another satanic symbol. You think that wasn't a satanic site? Overlay it. Okay. Is that it? The other way around, isn't it? Yeah. Flip it around. Okay, there you go. Okay, now let's read what that sign means. That is the seal of Amsman scale. I guess that, no, that's the wrong, that's the one before. Belial, a mighty king created next after Lucifer, appears in the form of a beautiful angel seated in a chariot of fire and speaking with a pleasant voice. He fell first amongst the superior angels who went before Michael and other heavenly angels. He distributes preferences of senatorships, causes favors of friends and foes, and gives excellent families. Familiar? He must have offering and sacrifices made to him. Next. And there's another satanic sign. I couldn't make that one out, so I couldn't match it with anything, obviously. Here's some ovens. That was a large circle with a number of signs in it, a lot of writing. We couldn't get up high enough that we could take a good picture of it. Next. And let's put that back a minute. That's another case. Okay, nothing came of that. Nobody was interested in an abandoned satanic site, even though it appears to have been related to the McMartin case. I have to say that I was very disappointed. We gathered this evidence privately. The police don't have the capability of doing so. Too many high-pressure people involved. too many prominent individuals involved. So that's just an overview of the McMartin case, folks. No question in my mind that it was a satanic operation. And Dr. Roland Summit, UCLA psychiatrist, says, who's done a lot of research in this field also, that there are 50 other preschools in the country where the kids have talked about going down into tunnels.